Good evening, everyone. I'm Ankit, and you're watching the Indian Express analysis, which goes live every day at 4 p.m. on StudyIQ IS English channel. Now, today is 29th of March, and we are going to discuss 6 articles from our today's newspaper. Now, we'll start our today's discussion with the latest scheme for electronic components, which was announced by government yesterday. This is a scheme which will provide at least about 91,600 jobs. Now, this scheme intends to increase the share of manufacturing sector, particularly in the manufacturing of electronic components, which you can understand is in huge demand in our Indian economy. From mobile phones to laptops, everything require electronic component. And currently, we are dependent on imports, even though we are self-sufficient in assembling of these kind of electronic equipment. Now, to alleviate the need for imports, in this case, we are coming up with a scheme for electronic components, which is relevant from GS paper 3 perspective. As it deals with manufacturing, it deals with employment, therefore it becomes relevant from GS paper 3. Then we'll be understanding Myanmar earthquake, because yesterday there was this very extreme earthquake that took place in Myanmar, and it resulted into what is known currently death of more than 1,000 people. Now we'll understand why is particularly Myanmar at a such significant vulnerability as far as earthquake is concerned. What is the geographical reasons for it? We are going to explain that in detail. So this is relevant from GS paper 1 perspective, because in GS paper 1 syllabus you'll see that geophysical formations of the earth, which also includes movement of tectonic plates, these are given in GS paper 1, and we understand that it is the movement of tectonic plates which also results into earthquake. Now, in the third article, we'll be understanding 3 important concepts of Indian economy, that is current account deficit, fiscal deficit, as well as core sector, because a news appeared in today's newspaper. It highlighted that India's current account deficit stands currently at 1.1% of the GDP as far as the outgoing quarter is concerned. So the quarterly results of current account deficit, fiscal deficit, etc. is not important, but what is important is indeed these kind of concepts. So we are going to into very basics of these concepts from our today's discussion perspective. Now this is also relevant from GS paper 3. All of this belongs to the part of Indian economy syllabus. Then in the fourth article, we'll be understanding Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, as this is a income support scheme particularly to pregnant women and lactating mothers, so as to alleviate the need for losing out on work hours during their pregnancy. Now, what kind of benefits are available in this particular scheme? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, this kind of a scheme is relevant from GS paper 2 perspective, particularly because social sector and the development of vulnerable section is given in our syllabus. Then in the fifth article, we'll be understanding about Gaia spacecraft. Gaia spacecraft was a spacecraft launched by European Space Agency. Now it has time for the European Space Agency to retire this particular spacecraft. So what this spacecraft intended to do, we'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. It is relevant again from GS paper 3 perspective, because it deals with matters related to awareness in space. And in the last article, which is a detailed discussion on India's deep sea challenge, because we understand globally there is an increased competition in exploring the deepest point of our oceans, and also India is one of the countries which is participating in this kind of a competition. By competition, I mean not an official competition, but a geo global or geo-economic race in this regard. So this article is relevant from GS paper 3 perspective, particularly from environment, from economy, from science and tech. So we'll understand in great detail each and every aspect of India's deep sea challenge. And the notes for today's discussion will be available as usual on my Telegram channel, which is called as ATS Live. So you can search the keywords ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your mobile app. And also you have an option to scan the QR code, which will take you directly to my YouTube channel. To my Telegram channel. Now, the question that we are going to discuss today, as you can understand, pertains to India's deep sea challenge. Discuss the strategic, economic and environmental significance of deep sea technology for India. What steps should India take to strengthen its deep sea exploration capabilities? So, we'll try to understand first of all the fodder material which you need to write the answer for this particular question, right? But before that, let us get away with all the other articles. We'll start off our today's discussion with this first article that appeared on the very front page of our today's newspaper, and it states that the cabinet, it has cleared a 23,000 crore scheme for electronic component which targets almost 92,000 jobs. Now, in this regard, the scheme for electronics component, it is spread over a period of 6 years, and the budgetary support for this scheme is very close to 23,000 crore rupees. Now, this scheme, it aims to deepen India's presence in the global value chain while increasing the domestic value addition in the country. You'll understand why government wants to increase the domestic value addition after we are done with our today's discussion. Now, there are some challenges that the Indian government and particularly Indian economy has faced when it comes to manufacturing of electronic component in India. First is lack of domestic scale. Now, India's current capacity is only 10% of its electronic production. Now, India is one of the largest producer of electronics in the country, in the world, particularly mobile phones. You understand, each and every big companies, be it Samsung, Apple, all of them have their mobile assembly and mobile manufacturing units in India. But to manufacture those mobile phones, to manufacture those laptops, you need to import large scale of electronic components from other countries, most of them belonging to countries like China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, etc. So the government is looking to reduce its dependence on import and scale up the domestic manufacturing, so that whatever you are assembling it in India, so rather than sourcing the components from other countries, why don't you source it from Indian companies and Indian territory only? Also, the electronic sector has a very high investment to turnover ratio. For example, in smartphone production, every 1 rupee invested generates 20 rupees in revenue, whereas in electronic components, every 1 rupee invested generates only 2 to 4 rupees revenue. So understand, for per capital, if you invest it, you get more return in smartphone production. That is, for every 1 rupee invested in smartphone production, you'll get 20 rupees in revenue. Whereas you can understand it is somewhat disincentivizing electronic components investment, because for every 1 rupee investment, you will only get returns of about 2 to 4 rupees in revenue. So this highlights that why in India smartphone production is undertaking so much, and why not electronic components is undertaking so much. So this is the reason why there is a high investment to turnover ratio. Also, you understand, India faces a very high import dependency. Electronic imports in India are only the second largest import category after crude oil, because we understand for importing crude oil, India depends on imports for as much as 85% of its domestic need. And second is electronic imports, that 75% of India's domestic production, it relies on imported components. So this is why I've said that electronic components is second only to crude oil imports. Now, there is also very high demand supply gap in electronic component sector, because current domestic production for electronics is almost $10.75 billion, whereas the gap between consumption of the domestic industry and production or final assembly of the domestic industry is $100 billion. So this is the gap that is required to be filled, not through domestic companies, but through importing these kind of components. Also, this electronic sector has a very huge export demand. Not just you can utilize these components while manufacturing electronic devices in India, but you also can send it to other countries where similar assemblies are happening. So therefore, the potential of this industry is quite huge, not just meeting domestic demand, but also catering to international demand. So therefore, government became quite apprehensive and quite sure that once it makes certain investment in electronic components industry, it will pay huge dividend when it comes to Indian economy, right? So this is why this scheme was introduced. Now, let us understand few of the components of this scheme, right? Now, it targets electronic component. The scheme will focus on encouraging the production of key components that are currently imported. What are the key components that are imported in India? That is printed circuit board, display modules, which we imported from countries like South Korea. Sub-assembly camera modules, which we import from countries like China. Similarly, printed circuit board assemblies on which each and every microprocessor is embedded in your mobile phones, your remotes, etc. Lithium cell enclosures, which you understand are quite essential in powering our electronic devices. This is again imported. Similarly, resistors and capacitors. These are also the components which are available in all electronic gadget, but these have to be imported in India before being assembled in India. Also, in terms of employment creation, this sector has a potential to create a large scale employment. And as you can see, even from the mobile sector, most of the employment, these are provided to women. So you understand the potential of this in employment sector is quite huge, and that is why the scheme is targeting of creation of as much as 91,600 jobs, which are direct in nature, not counting the indirect jobs. Understand? So these are the benefits. Also, it wants to increase the local value addition. Now, production linked incentive scheme for smartphone manufacturing has been quite successful in attracting major companies, be it Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Samsung, Apple. Nothing, every company has their presence or their production in India. So why don't not just producing the mobiles or assembling those mobiles is desired, but also making the components which are used in those mobile are very essential, and that is why government is trying to provide local value addition, because despite the rise in domestic assembly of mobile phones, local value addition remains very low at only about 15 to 20%, and with this scheme government is trying to bring this more, at least to the levels of 30 to 40% of value addition in India. So this is the intention of the government. Also, what you have to understand, what is the structure of benefits that will be provided to company in form of incentives. Now, the scheme offers three types of incentives. First is operational incentive, which is based on incremental sales similar to the PLI model. Suppose if a company before registering for the scheme manufactured 2 lakh units of mobile phones every year, right? So this is the production level before the registration for the scheme. But after the company registers the scheme, the company increases its production from 2 lakh mobile phones every year to 3 lakh units of mobile phone every year. So the benefit will be available on the incremental level, that is 1 lakh incremental mobiles that were sold after the company has enrolled for the scheme. Understood? So this is how operational incentive work. Similarly, capital expenditure incentives are also provided. Suppose after enlisting for the scheme, the company decides to invest 4,000 crore rupees in setting up of a new mobile phone plant. So in this investment for the companies for setting up of any new capital expenditure or any new capital expenditure requirement after it has registered for the scheme, incentive will be available on this model. And there's also a hybrid model which will combine both of these operational incentive as well as capital expenditure incentives into one component. So these are how the incentives will be provided under the scheme. One is operational incentive, which is based on incremental sales. Capital expenditure is made on eligible capital expenditure, which is the capital expenditure made after this company has enrolled for the scheme. Understood? So this is how this particular scheme works. Also, you have to understand what is the eligibility criteria. Now, both greenfield investments are eligible as well as brownfield investments are eligible. What is a greenfield investment? That any investment which is made on a factory which was not there currently. So suppose if there is a barren piece of land and I establish a factory, then that factory will be eligible under greenfield investment. And brownfield investment means that there is an existing factory and I am increasing the capacity of that factory. So those are called as brownfield investment. So both of these kind of investments are eligible to get incentives under the scheme. And also foreign companies can participate in two ways. First of all, they can transfer their technology to an Indian company which can undertake manufacturing, or they can establish a joint venture with a domestic firm and undertake the production process in togetherness. So these are how the incentives are provided under the scheme. Understood? Now let us solve the practice question. Before this, good evening everyone. Yashi, Kaizen, Sarang, Shushmita, Mohit, Geeta, Baga, Shweta, Niranjan, Suraj, Kaizen, Revolutionary IS. All of you, good evening. Divyansh, right? Revolutionary IS Academy. So what is the correct answer for the scheme? Answer me quickly. Sarang says A, Shushmita says B, Yashi says B. Well, the scheme aims to increase the local validation in electronics manufacturing from current 15 to 20% to at least 17.5% is incorrect. I told you it is about 30 to 40%. The target of the government is to increase the validation to 30 to 40%. Both greenfield and brownfield investments are eligible. This is correct. Foreign companies can participate only by transferring the technologies to an Indian firm. This is incorrect. They can either transfer the technology or can form a joint venture. Both of them are eligible. So only second is correct, first and third are not. So B option is the right answer. So Shushmita, Yashi, Mohit, Divyansh, all of you are correct. Baga and Sarang, please read the question again. You've gotten this incorrect this time. Now, let us move to the next article. This article appeared in the explain section, and this talks about the massive earthquake that happened yesterday in Myanmar. Now, this powerful earthquake, which was a magnitude of 7.7, and at least 6 aftershock were experienced after this particular massive earthquake in the central part of Myanmar on Friday, bringing buildings down in the second largest city of Myanmar, that is Mandalay. Now, the quake's epicenter was located about 17.2 kilometers away from Mandalay, which is a metropolis with a population of around 15 lakh of people. Now, the earthquake which happened in Myanmar was a shallow earthquake with a depth of only 10 kilometers, and it was the strongest one anywhere in the world in the last 2 years. So that is why, in terms of its magnitude and in terms of the destruction that this earthquake has created, that is why this is such a significant and a big news. Now let us understand first of all what caused this particular earthquake. Now, you have to understand that the outer layer of Earth is known as Earth's lithosphere, which is made up of a rigid outermost rocky shell of planet, and it is made up of what is known as tectonic plates. Now, these tectonic plates have been slowly moving over the last 3 to 4 billion years, and their interaction in a way is responsible for many of the planet's geological feature, be it Himalayan fold mountains or any fold mountains anywhere across the world, be it oceans, each and every geological feature of the earth currently, it is influenced one way or the other by the movement of tectonic plates. Now, this tectonic plates and its sudden movement, whenever two tectonic plates suddenly slip past each other, this releases a stored up pent up energy in the tectonic plates known as elastic strain, and this energy is released in a form of seismic waves. Now, when the seismic waves interact with everything that is present on the earth, be it the rocks and etc., this causes the ground to shake, what is known as the earthquake, right? So this is the very basic of earthquake, that the earthquake happens with the sudden movement of tectonic plates whenever these tectonic plates interact and move across each other, right? Now, the Myanmar earthquake, it took place due to the strike slip faulting between the Indian and Eurasian plate, meaning these two plates, they have rubbed sideways, and this sideways rubbing of the two tectonic plates, that is Indian and Eurasian plate, has resulted into this Myanmar earthquake. Now, this took place on the Sagaing fault, which is located in the central part of Myanmar, which runs north to south of the Myanmar, and it is prone to earthquake. Now, a fault is a fracture or a zone of fractures between two blocks of rock, which allows the blocks to move relative to each other, sometimes leading to earthquake. So each and every fault that is present on the earth, not just this Sagaing fault, but also faults like California fault, etc., all of these faults are the reason, or are the regions where we find the huge susceptibility of earthquake, and these are the regions that are most prone to earthquakes. Now, this is the image of the Sagaing fault. As you can see, it runs north to south of Myanmar, and in this point only this March 28th quake happened, and the circles which are marked in this image are the regions where historically earthquakes have happened. So you can understand any region which is very near to this particular Sagaing fault, or any fault for that matter on the earth, is a region which is quite prone to earthquake. Now, the Sagaing fault, it marks the tectonic plate boundary between the Indian plate towards the west of the Sagaing fault. This is the area where there is Indian plate, and this is the area where there is Eurasian plate, and they are separated by the Sagaing fault. So whenever these two plates move, that is Indian plate moves northwards and the Sagaing plate moves southwards, this fault or near to this fault earthquake happens. Understood? So this is how this Myanmar earthquake happened. That is the movement of both Eurasian plate to the east, which is located towards the east, and Indian plate to the west, and Indian plate was moving north along the fault compared to the Eurasian plate. Now, Myanmar in general has frequently experienced earthquake due to this existence of Sagaing fault in the very center part of the country, and since 1900 at least 6 quakes have had or have emerged which were magnitude of greater than 7. Now, when it comes to earthquake magnitude greater than 6 in last 100 years, Myanmar has witnessed 14 such earthquakes. So you can understand the vulnerability of Myanmar because it is located in the Sagaing Fault. That is why this area is quite vulnerable to earthquakes. Now, let us move to the next article. This article appeared in the economy page of today's newspaper, that is on page 19. As you can see, it highlights very important components of the static part of economy syllabus. Now, you understand sometimes the question in the UPSC that not just appears on the current affairs particular topic, but it appears on the topic which appeared in the current affairs, but that question relates to some kind of a static portion of the syllabus. So, in this our today's discussion, we have to understand that current account deficit for a particular quarter, it won't be asked in the prelims examination. However, what will be asked is the concept of current account deficit. Similarly, fiscal deficit, which is highlighted at 85.8% of the full year target, also is an important part of the economy syllabus. So is the core sector growth. So in this regard, in today's discussion, we'll understand what is current account deficit, what is fiscal deficit, and what is core sector. Now, the context of this article is that in the last quarter of October to December, India witnessed a current account deficit amounting to 1.1% of its GDP. Now, this figure was released by the RBI, which or the current account deficit is India, it happened due to increase in merchandise trade deficit, that is the difference between import and export of goods in India. Now, this is a screenshot from NCERT. Now, these are the components which are included in the current account, that is trade in goods, trade in services and transfer payments. Now, trade in goods includes both export and import of goods, and the difference between export and imports is what tells us the levels of deficit or surplus in trade in goods. Suppose if import of goods in India is more than export of goods out of India, that means the trade in goods in India is in deficit. So deficit is a condition whenever imports is greater than exports, which means there will be an overall outflow of dollars from Indian market. So this is what deficit means. Similarly, trade in services includes two components: net factor income, which means you have invested in any property outside, that investment will be categorized into capital account, but the returns from that investment, be it rental income of your house, be it interest payments for that investment, will be considered in net factor income. So it includes income from compensation to the employees, it includes net investment income like interest, like rent, like dividend from the shares you might have had in foreign stock markets. So these are the net factor income. Similarly, net non-factor income includes shipping, banking, insurance, tourism, software. These are all services, and you can understand India is a very huge service exporting country. So means in trade in services, India witnesses huge surplus. That means exports of services is more than imports of services. But when it comes to trade in goods, here India imports more than it exports. That is why India witnesses a huge deficit in trade in Indian goods. Now, the most important component here is the transfer payments. And why transfer payment is most important component? Because it includes gifts, remittances and grants. And as far as remittances is concerned, India is the world's largest recipient of remittances across the world, because you understand India has a huge presence of diaspora, and especially in countries like UAE, Saudi, UK, US, Indian diaspora is earning quite well, and when these diaspora are sending money into India, that is called as an remittances income. And as for the World Bank, India has the highest remittances of all country across the world. So in this manner, India also witnesses huge inflow of transfer payments. Now all of this is surplus, that is transfer payment is in surplus, trade in imports is or trade in services is surplus, however trade in goods is in deficit. However, overall the deficit of the current account, which includes trade in goods, trade in services and transfer payment, in current account India almost every year has a current account deficit. Understood? So this is the entire concept of the current account. Current account includes transactions which happen from India to other countries and other countries to India in fields of trade in goods, field of trade in services and transfer payments. Whereas long-term investments, be it FDI, FPI, loans that Indian government or companies take from outside, all of this is a part of what? Capital account. Understand the difference? Kusum, good evening. No problem if you're late. So this is the theory. This theory is actually whatever I've said. Now what you have to realize is the difference between surplus and deficit. Surplus, I told you, whenever any component, you are exporting that component more than you are importing similar things, that is called as surplus, and the reverse, that is if imports is more than exports, that is called as deficit. And when it comes to current account in India, India has a deficit. When it comes to trade in goods, India has a deficit, but when it comes to trade in services and the net factor income or transfer payments, India has a surplus. Understand the difference? Now, let's see if you can solve this PYQ of 2014 or not. With reference to balance of payments, which of the following constitutes or constitute the current account? Balance of trade, foreign assets, balance of invisibles, and special drawing rights. So, let me know which of this is a part of current account. Now, you have to understand that goods, they are called as something which is visible in nature, because technically you can see goods coming in and going out of the country. So this is called also as trade in visibles. Whereas the trade in services and transfer payments, these are something which you can't see from your eyes going in and out of country, right? Suppose if you're offering insurance services, how will you witness delivery of that insurance service from your eyes, right? So that is why services and transfer payments, these are called as trade in invisibles. Understand the difference? Visibles include trade in goods, invisible includes trade in services and the transfer payments. Now coming back to the question, please let me know the correct answer. Which of the following constitutes trade or constitutes a part of current account? Shushmita, Baga, Yashi, Sarang, Kusum, Kaizen, Divyansh, Mohit, Suraj. Well, balance of trade, I told you, right? Balance of trade includes trade in goods and services. So, trade in goods and services, part of current account, right? So, first one is correct. Balance of invisibles, I told you, trade in services and transfer payments, these are part of balance of invisible, so part of the current account. Similarly, special drawing rights are a part of your capital account, and similarly foreign assets are part of capital account. So from our questions perspective, first and third are a part of current account, hence option C is the right answer. Achal, good evening. Yes, office data, Sarang, Bagasping, Shushmita, Yashi, all of you are right. Option C is the right answer. Now the second part of this article, fiscal deficit. Now fiscal deficit, you will hear this term every time the budget of India is announced. Now you have to understand, in terms of expenditure, the Indian government has a lot more expenditure than the receipts of the Indian government. That is, Indian government earns quite less and Indian government spends quite more. So in order to meet the entire obligation of its expenditure, Indian government needs to borrow some money. So this money, or whatever money Indian government borrows every year, this is called as fiscal deficit. So technically, in this fiscal deficit, it reflects the total borrowing requirement of the government, and in terms of formula, it is called as the difference between total expenditure and total receipts, excluding the debt capital receipts. And why this highlights excluding debt capital receipts? Because you will see this from this particular screenshot, which I have taken from this year's budget. Now you will see in this year's budget, which highlights also the revised estimate of the outgoing financial year 2024 and 25, it highlights total receipt as 47.16 lakh crore rupees, whereas total expenditure is also the same amount. But do you think Indian government earns exactly the same amount as it is spending every year? The answer obviously is no. Indian government earns a less amount of money as compared to its total expenditure obligations. So therefore, in this column, you will see borrowings and other liabilities. Therefore, here Indian government is borrowing how much money? 15.69 lakh crore rupees every year to match its overall expenditures. Understand? So technically, when you minus this 47.16 lakh crore rupees from 15.69 lakh crore of borrowings, here you get the actual total receipt of the government. So this is the total receipt of the government, right? That is 31.47 lakh crore, whereas this 15.569 lakh crore rupees is the government's fiscal deficit in the year. Understand? So this is what fiscal deficit is, and in addition to this fiscal deficit or total borrowing, you see by adding this amount, you will get the total receipt of the government, which is equal to the total expenditure. So technically, as per the government, they have a balanced budget, but this balance is only achieved after government borrows a significant amount of money. So total expenditure of the government here is 47.16 lakh crore rupees, and total borrowing of the government is for 15.69 lakh crore rupees, and this is what the fiscal deficit of the government is for the financial year 2024 and 25. So this in a way highlights the total amount of borrowing by the government. What is special drawing right? Where Yashi, special drawing right is the money that government deposits with the IMF. See, IMF requires each and every member country to deposit some amount of money with them, and what amount of money every country deposit, it is based on the quota of percentage that the companies or countries have with the IMF, right? So different countries have different kind of investment liabilities with IMF, and they have to keep certain money with IMF. That is called as special drawing right, and this special drawing right is a part of India's and every country's foreign exchange reserves. Understand, Yashi? I'm not going into detail because that is something that will take about half an hour of discussion. Okay. So this is what fiscal deficit is. You understand that fiscal deficit is reflective of the total borrowing requirement of the government. Now you understand fiscal deficit of Indian government, it went quite high during the time of COVID pandemic, because you understand during COVID pandemic, India's government receipt was quite low because yes, Indian economy was in shutdown. You understand government received a lot less of money in terms of GST collection and other collections. So therefore, Indian government had to borrow a lot of amount of money during COVID-19 pandemic. But since COVID-19 pandemic, you'll see that there is a gradual decline in India's total borrowing, that is Indian government's fiscal deficit level. Now let us move to the another concept, that is the core industries. Now in India there are 8 industries which are part of core sectors, and these core industries, they constitute 40.27% of the total index of industrial production. Now the index for 8 core industries which highlight the core sector, this is prepared by Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, whereas this IIP is published by the National Statistical Office, which is a part of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, whereas index of 8 core industries published by the Office of Economic Advisor, and it is published on a monthly basis with a base year of 2011 to 12. Now these are the sectors which constitute the 8 core industries. The highest weightage is given to petroleum and refinery production at 28.04%, followed by electricity generation 19.85%, followed by steel production at 17.92%, whereas the least amount of weightage, if you might not see from this, let me make this clear to you, it is given to the fertilizer production, that is 2.63%. Understand? So these are the 8 core industries. What you have to remember is the top 3, and the last, that is the fertilizer production. Now let's see if you are able to solve this question. Shushmita sir, why is then receipt is equal to expenditure and not equal to? See, if you see from here, by adding this borrowing, that is, sorry, let me clear this. If you can see from this image, by adding this borrowing, that is 15.69 lakh crore rupees, when you add this number to the total receipt of the government, then only you will get this figure of 47.16 lakh crore rupees. And this is also the total expenditure. So what government budgeting in its process of budgeting does is that first it estimates how much it is going to spend in a year, that is its total expenditure. Then it understands how much it is earning from different sources, be it revenue receipt and capital receipt. So this figure in this year comes at 31.47 lakh crore rupees. But you understand government's expenditure is 47.16 lakh crore rupees, whereas its earning is only 31.47 lakh crore rupees. So as to meet this requirement of its higher expenditure, government borrowed 15.69 lakh crore rupees in this financial year, which resulted now into the balance of the total budget. Understand, Shushmita? Any doubt you have in this particular topic, that how is this total expenditure equal to total receipt? That this has become equal only after government has borrowed 15.69 lakh crore rupees. For example, suppose if you are living in hostel, right? So suppose if you are living in hostel and your family every year or your father every year is sending you, or every month your father is sending you 10,000 rupees for your day-to-day expenditures in a month, right? But suppose in a particular month your expenditure increases to 12,000 rupees. So what will you do? You will borrow 2,000 extra rupees from your friend, and in addition to the 10,000 rupees which is provided by your father, your total expenditure in a particular month becomes 12,000 rupees. That is, you are getting 10,000 from your father and you are borrowing 2,000 rupees from your friend. So this is how your total expenditure in a particular month becomes 12,000 rupees. Now you understand? So this 2,000 rupees technically is your fiscal deficit for this particular month. Similarly, government is also borrowing money to meet its expenditure obligation, which is quite high as compared to its total income. So it is borrowing money from the market. This is called as fiscal deficit for a particular year. Now solve this question. Well, index of 8 core industries, it comprises 60% of the weight of items included in IIP. What did I tell you? It comprises of 40.27% of the total weights in IIP. So first is incorrect. Second, it is prepared by Central Statistical Office, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Again, incorrect. I told you it is provided or published by Office of Economic Advisor, which is a part of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Third, electricity generation is given the highest weightage in ICI. I called, again it is incorrect. That is, petroleum and refinery sector has the highest weightage. Second is the electricity generation. So third also incorrect, second also incorrect. Which one of the following is incorrect? None. That is, option D is right. Understand? So Shweta only is correct and Yashi is correct. Shushmita, Baga, office data, Sarang, Mohit, all of you are wrong this time. No problem. What happened to you, Baga Spinks? Now, these are the concepts, every concept in detail, which also includes special drawing right, external sector in which current account is a part of, fiscal deficit, which is a part of government budgeting, core sector, which is a part of industrial sector. Each and every topic I take in detail in our Sampoorn classes, which is also the foundation level batches. Now currently the admissions for these kind of classes are ongoing, which will close on 31st of March, and this is a morning batch. Now to undertake admissions in this particular batch, what you have to do is to go to our website, click on explore courses here. As soon as you click on explore courses, there a tile will appear, and to access this tile, what you have to do, click on UPSC IS English. As soon as you click on UPSC IS English, you can see there are different kind of a batch which are available. I am talking about the March morning batches, the prices of which will increase after 31st of March, and also this batch or admissions for this particular batch will close on 31st of March. Now click on this particular tile if you want to take admission, and as you can see, this course is available on our website at 34,999 rupees. Now by using the code which is appearing on the bottom half of your screen right now, that is ATS Live, you can get much more discounts even on this amount. Let me tell you how. Now suppose there's an option for you to add promo code. Click on this option. Here you have to enter coupon code and enter ATS Live. As soon as you click on apply, you see the discount available is 7,000 rupees, and this course now, which was available at 34,999, now this is available at 27,999. Understand? So this is how you get maximum discounts on the course. For platinum it is 27,999, for gold it is 17,999, and for silver it is 8,499, and you'll get this only by applying ATS Live code. Understand? Now let us move to another article. This one appeared on the page 9 of the Indian Express newspaper, and it states that the parliamentary panel has said that a huge underutilization of funds for maternity scheme has happened, that is the Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana. Now, parliamentary panel has flagged huge underutilization of funds under PM Matru Vandana Yojana, which is a maternity benefit scheme, and this panel recommended that the scheme's cash assistance of rupees 5,000 rupees, currently it has to increased by rupees 6,000. So let us understand what this scheme is all about. Now this is a centrally sponsored scheme, which means the financial contribution for the scheme is made by both union government as well as state government. Now the benefits under this scheme is provided in form of direct benefit transfer directly into your bank accounts, and this was launched in 2017. Now, the objective of bringing this scheme was to provide partial compensation for wage loss in terms of cash incentive, so that the women, they can take care of themselves and take adequate rest before and after delivery of the first child. And also it is to improve the health seeking behavior among pregnant women and lactating mothers. So these are the objectives of this scheme. Mohit, it is a completely online classes where you'll get live classes. Okay, just like this particular video which I am taking live. Similarly, the classes for that batches also happen live. But if you are for some reason not able to attend the live classes, you also will be getting the recorded videos of that particular lecture. Understand? Now let us understand the feature of the scheme. Now this scheme is to provide maternity benefits to women who belong to social and economically disadvantaged section of the society. Now what are the benefits that are available? That pregnant women will be provided, or the benefits for the pregnant women will be provided to women for the first two living children, provided that the second child is a girl child. So in that case, suppose the first child is a boy child and second child is a girl child, then the benefits are available. First child is a girl child and second child is girl child, here the benefits are available. Understand? Now under this scheme, monetary benefit of rupees 5,000 is given to expecting mothers from the time of their initial stages of pregnancy till the time the child is born, and additionally 1,000 rupees is provided under Janani Suraksha Yojana post institutional delivery. Now this 5,000 rupees benefit is provided in 3 installments. The first installment is provided of rupees 1,000, and it is paid at the time when a woman registers her pregnancy with the government. Second installment of rupees 2,000 is paid at the time of completing 6 months of pregnancy and receiving at least one antenatal checkup. Third installment of rupees 2,000 is received after the birth and registration of the birth of such child, and after the child receives first cycle of immunization for BCG, that is TB, OPV, DPT and hepatitis B immunization. So this you can understand wants the woman to take care of herself during her pregnancy period, and also wants the woman to complete her child's immunization so that she can get the third installment. So this is how the installments are designed by the government. Also, in case God forbid for some reason there happens a miscarriage or the child born is not alive, that is stillbirth, in that case the maternity will be provided in other pregnancies also, that this will not be considered for removing the benefits to the woman. Understand? So let me tell you, or let's see if you can solve this particular question. Good evening, the epic one. Well, the scheme provides maternity benefit only for the first living child. Incorrect, I told you it is provided for the second child, provided it has to be a girl. The second statement, the financial assistance of 5,000 rupees is provided in a single installment. Again, incorrect. It is provided in 3 installments. Now, in cases of miscarriage or stillbirth, the beneficiary is eligible to receive maternity benefits for future pregnancy. This one is correct. We have to identify correct statement. Only third one is right. First and second are incorrect. So option C here is the right answer. All of you, Sarang, Shishmita, Shweta, Baga, Office Data, Yashi, all of you have gotten this right. Now let us move to the next article. This one appeared in 2 pages in yesterday's newspaper, and as you can see, both of these articles talks about Gaia spacecraft of the European Space Agency. Now, the European Space Agency has officially shut down its space observatory mission Gaia on March 27th, the 2025. That was 2 days before. Now, this Gaia mission was originally named as Global Astrometric Interferometer for Astrophysicists, GAIA, and it was officially named or renamed as Gaia. Now, the primary objective of this mission is to conduct astrometry, which is precisely mapping the celestial bodies by determining their locations and movements in space. And for this, the positioning of the spacecraft was done at Lagrangian point L2, which is 1.5 kilometers behind the Earth relative to the Sun, allowing an unobstructed view of the space. Understand? Now, about Gaia mission, this Gaia mission has or had 3 scientific instruments. First one is an astrometer, which measures the precise location of stars. The second one is a photometer, which measures the brightness and the color of celestial bodies. And the third one is a spectrometer, which analyzes the chemical composition of stars and objects. Right. Also, the major discoveries that were enabled by the Gaia mission was it created the most detailed 3D map of the galaxy, and it helps scientists to understand the structure of Milky Way, showing its central bar, spiral arms, and wobbly disk. Similarly, it helped with the discovery of new type of black hole, including the one which is very close to the Earth, as unlike earlier detection, which was based on an emitted light. Gaia found this true black hole by observing the gravitational effect and how a spacecraft analyzes a particular black hole, because you understand black hole is a very huge gravitational effect, so it will absorb each and everything, including the light from the surrounding regions. Also, asteroid tracking and threat assessment was done by this spacecraft, which identified more than 1.5 lakh of asteroids and predicted the future orbits of many. Some of them might pose a threat to the Earth also. So this is how such kind of a observatory played a key role in many scientific missions, and that is why its retirement has become significant. Understand? Now let us move to the last article of the day. This also appeared in the yesterday's newspaper in explained section, and it highlights India's deep sea challenge. Now, the context of this article is that India undertook the development of Matsya 6000 submersible, which completed its wet testing. And this submersible or a submarine, it is capable of diving up to 6 kilometers deep into the ocean to explore underwater minerals. Now, its launch later this year will place India among the few nations who have the capability to undertake such deep sea diving or a manned deep sea exploration. Now, India's Matsya 6000 submersible aims to enhance the deep sea exploration for resources and security. And you understand, amid growing geopolitical competition and technological advances in undertaking sea infrastructure or mapping the sea ocean floor, this kind of a development becomes very necessary. As you can understand, countries like US, France, China, they are also developing their own submersible vehicles. So India's development is also pits them, these countries, against India. Now, in this regard, let us understand why such exploration of deep sea important, because according to a United Nations Convention of Laws of Sea, that is abbreviated as UN clause, the economic or exclusive economic zone of a country which extends from the sea coast up till 200 nautical miles into the sea, that is approximately 370 kilometers into the sea, any nation has an exclusive right to living and non-living resources. Anything which is there in the water, be it fishes, be it minerals, everything belongs to the country whose EEZ is that, right? So that is why India also needs to explore such a huge exclusive economic zone of India, which extends about many thousand square kilometers in case of India. Now, what is the need for such deep sea technology? First of all, you need to harness your economic resources. Now, ocean in general holds a vast amount of untapped resources, be it gas hydrates, which has the potential to serve as a future energy source. Similarly, these ocean floors, they have polymetallic nodules. These nodules are rich in many minerals known as manganese, nickel, cobalt. Also, there is a huge presence of oil and gas reserves which are essential for energy security, and also presence of nutraceuticals like bioactive compounds which can be used to manufacture pharmaceutical and health products. So first of all, you need to assess these resources that might be present in your EEZ, and also not just assessing these resources, you need to also have the capability to mine these resources from your EEZ. So that is why developing deep sea technology will enable India to explore and commercially exploit these resources that might be present in India's exclusive economic zones. Understand? Similarly, you understand such kind of a deep sea exploration is very important for enhancing your national security, because increasing geopolitical competition is happening in deep sea. For example, China has a deep sea cable cutting device, and you understand developing deep sea surveillance and maritime awareness capabilities is very essential to protect your maritime boundaries. Also, you understand mapping the ocean floor is very necessary so that your navy submarines can move around these ocean floors, which will not be so well known to the enemy territories. Understand? Also, strengthening of communication and digital infrastructure is very important, as over 95% of intercontinental internet that happens through the underwater sea cables. So first of all, you need to have the capability to lie down your own underwater sea cables, and also you need the deterrence capability that should stop any adversarial country to cut your own deep sea water cable. So this is also you can achieve through development of such deep sea exploring devices and equipments. Similarly, the ocean has a very huge potential to support blue economy, because India's economic zone or exclusive economic zone spans how much? 2.73 million square kilometers. Now, India's blue economy, it can contribute significantly to our GDP growth, that is through deep sea fishing, aquaculture, maritime, biotechnology, and also through ecotourism. And also in the field of scientific research and climate security, deep sea exploration will enhance the understanding of our maritime biodiversity and ecosystem. That suppose due to our developmental activities, if there is a actual danger to our maritime ecosystem, we will be understanding through our deep sea exploration and undertake rectifying measures accordingly. Also, oceanographic data can improve climate change models, weather forecasting, and studying hydrothermal vents and marine life can provide insight to evolution and potential medical breakthroughs. So this has security related implication, this has economy related implication, this has the climate and environmental related implication. So that is why for all these reasons, you need to have a deep sea exploring and assessing technology, which India is undergoing currently. Now, what can India do for improving this kind of a capabilities in future? First of all, India needs to enhance the financial and policy support. And for this, one of the recommendations comes to my mind, that you need to upgrade the Department of Ocean Development to a full-fledged ministry with a cabinet rank minister as the in charge of that ministry, and ensuring generous funding and launching of time-bound mission mode projects will ensure that there is an accountability of the government to the overall people of India. Further, we need to invest in advancement of technology, that is developing indigenous technology, not just submersible, but also communication and undersea infrastructure, by establishing a specialized research center for deep sea technology similar to that of China. We can understand deep sea science and engineering in a much more better way. Also, what you can do is strengthening the human capital and research. By doing so, we can create institutes of excellence in deep sea research and exploration, which will train and develop highly skilled personnel, which can actually provide knowledge to Indian companies. And also, we need to build strategic and defensive capabilities, that is develop response mechanisms to counter threats like China deep sea cable cutting devices, and also deploy underwater sensors and monitoring equipment to safeguard India's maritime interests. What is maritime interest? That it might be security related or economy related, because I told you there are presence of huge underwater sea cables that transmit as much as 95% of overall data on the internet. So suppose if any adversarial country during the time of war, what it does is that if it cuts the deep sea water cable, it will lead to stopping of internet across India. So we need to have the capability to deter any country from taking such kind of mischievous activities. Also, we need to enhance the infrastructure for exploration and security, that is expand deep sea fishing and exploration capability, develop capability for undersea cable laying, maintenance and protection, which is currently made sure through foreign equipments, and also invest in infra for oil and gas extraction and underwater mining. But doing so, we also have to ensure that environmental sustainability is must, because we can't just misutilize or explore or extract each and everything that is present in the sea, but we need to take sure or make sure that the maritime ecology is preserved while doing so, that our mining activities in the deep sea do not destroy the maritime biodiversity, that is fishes or other sea creatures and even the coral reefs, etc. Right? So this is what India needs to do. The answer lies in sustainable development, not the irrespective of what kind of a development you take. Understand? So this brings the end of our today's session. This is the question that you need to attempt today. I understand the day before yesterday's question I corrected them today, but yesterday's question along with today's question I will make sure to correct them today. Right? You can submit your answers on this group, that is ATS Live, and you can scan the QR code to reach this group. So this is all from today. Have a very happy weekend, and all of you who are celebrating Eid, I hope you have a very good and pleasant Eid. So Eid Mubarak to all. So I'll end the session. Okay.